Michelle Mone is a Scottish businesswoman. In the 90s, she founded the lingerie firm Ultimo. In 2010, she was awarded an OBE for services to business. In 2015, she was appointed to the House of Lords by then Prime Minister David Cameron. She became a Conservative peer and became Baroness Mone of Mayfair.
I was lucky that my mum and dad taught me dreams can come true. If you work hard, be honest and never, ever give up.
And Michelle Mone has a range of business interests. In 2017, she talked to the BBC about selling properties priced in Bitcoin.
Everything is transparent, everything is on a ledger, and I wouldn't be getting involved with anything, being a baroness in the House of Lords, if anything was dodgy.
Then, in 2020, COVID arrived, and suddenly the NHS had an urgent need for personal protective equipment.
We're getting a lot of messages from doctors on the front line that the current situation is, in many parts of the country, inadequate. The people are feeling unprotected.
The government didn't dispute that more equipment was needed.
We acknowledge the challenges, of course we do. We face them every day. And we are doing everything in our power to get that PPE to the front line.
And there were lots of offers of help. To process these, a high priority lane was created for referrals from MPs, Lords and a range of senior officials. And if you got access to the high priority lane, you were much more likely to get a contract. A parliamentary committee says around 1 in 10 suppliers which came through the high priority lane were awarded a contract, compared with 1 in 100 for the ordinary lane. Which brings us to May 2020 and back to Baroness Mone. On the 7th of May, she posted this video.
Thank you.
This was Michelle Mone and her now husband Douglas Barrowman clapping for NHS staff. The Guardian reports that the day after, Michelle Mone wrote to Cabinet Ministers Michael Gove and Lord Agnew, telling them, "We've managed to source PPE masks through my team in Hong Kong." Recently, Michael Gove said he remembers receiving that email and added,
at the time, whenever anyone approached us saying that they could help source PPE, they were always referred to an appropriate channel. They had to go through a procurement process.
4 days after the email to Michael Gove and Lord Agnew, a company called PPE Medpro was set up. Government records show Baroness Mone identifying PPE Medpro and Lord Agnew directing it to the high priority lane. Within weeks, it had won 2 contracts worth over £200 million. And by the end of 2020, questions were emerging.
BBC News understands that millions of medical gowns bought for the NHS in June for £122 million have never been used. The gowns were ordered from a supplier which had set up just a month earlier.
The supplier in question was PPE Medpro. The company responded saying it had supplied equipment fully in accordance with the agreed contract. The BBC also contacted Michelle Mone. Her lawyers told us Baroness Mone had no role or function in PPE Medpro, nor in the process by which contracts were awarded to PPE Medpro. According to the government, Michelle Mone did have connections to the company. A recent ministerial statement reads, "Departmental records reflect that a link between Baroness Mone and PPE Medpro was clear prior to contracts being awarded." Next we move into 2021 and government officials and social media users continue to hear from Michelle Mone. In February that year, one official describes her being incandescent with rage over the treatment of Medpro. In August 2021, Michelle Mone shared this picture of herself on a boat. "Business isn't easy, but it is rewarding," she told us. In December 2021, Baroness Mone posted on LinkedIn, "I worked hard to get here and it's paid off," she says. Weeks later, there was a new development, because in January 2022, the government said it was now seeking to recover monies paid to PPE Medpro in relation to a contract for the provision of gowns. Also, the House of Lords Commissioner for Standards launched an inquiry into Michelle Mone and PPE Medpro. And that's not the only investigation. Remember Lord Agnew? He'd referred PPE Medpro to the high priority lane. Well, recently, he was asked about Baroness Mone.
I'm afraid I can't talk about my dealings with her because I gave a statement to Mr. Jelly, who is the Standards Commissioner in the Lords. He has written a report, but he's not allowed to publish that until the NCA, the National Crime Agency, have completed their inquiries.
The NCA being a body that leads the UK's fight to cut serious and organised crime. In this case, details of its inquiries have not been made public. So we have a Lords inquiry waiting on NCA inquiries, and we know that properties linked to PPE Medpro have previously been searched by the NCA. And in recent weeks, the story's escalated. On the 23rd of November, The Guardian, citing leaked HSBC documents, reported Michelle Mone and her children secretly received £29 million originating from the profits of a PPE business. The business was named as PPE Medpro. The next day, Michelle Mone posted on Instagram, "Don't believe everything you read or everything you think, we were advised." What we could read the day after that was this from the FT. It said, an internal HSBC report seen by the Financial Times traces money transferred by PPE Medpro to accounts that benefited Barrowman and Mone. And by early December, the opposition Labour Party was calling for the government to release correspondence on PPE Medpro.
All this motion to the House today is asking for is transparency. What have you got to hide?
Labour would win that vote, meaning the government will have to send all documents on PPE Medpro to the Public Accounts Committee. The next day, Michelle Mone's office announced that, with immediate effect, Baroness Mone will be taking a leave of absence from the House of Lords in order to clear her name of the allegations that have been unjustly levelled against her. This is her decision. A spokesperson added, Baroness Mone's legal team are dealing with this witch hunt situation. The two inquiries are dealing with establishing what happened, and if parliamentary rules were broken, and if the law was broken.